Hello, and welcome to the mini book podcast, African American Books Edition. I am so excited to be here with you today to explore another incredible work.
It's a pleasure to be here. And we have a truly fascinating and honestly a paradigm-shifting text to discuss today.
We really do. Today, we are exploring Blacks in the Bible, the original roots of men and women of color in Scripture. Specifically, this is Volume 2, The Complete Works, by the author James H. Warden Jr.
And this book, I have to say, it completely flips the script on how you probably picture biblical history.
Oh, absolutely. It challenges all those mental images we've had since, Sunday school.
It certainly does. Warden really challenges that traditional imagery, and he brings a lot of research to back it up.
Right. But before we get started, we should probably offer a quick disclaimer to everyone listening.
Yes, that's important. While the voices you are hearing right now belong to AI, the content, all of the ideas we're discussing, are derived strictly from James H. Warden Jr.'s book.
Exactly. We're just using this technology to help bring the written word to life. But every insight, every argument, it all comes straight from the author's work. We feel this is just a fantastic way to learn about African American history.
And if you find today's discussion intriguing, and I'm pretty sure you will, we really encourage you to go out and purchase the book.
Yes, please do. Supporting the author directly is the best way to keep this kind of important research going.
So let's get into it.
Let's do it. The book's mission is, well, it's pretty bold. Warden argues that Black history isn't just a sidebar to the Bible. He says it is biblically sacred history. He even calls it a stolen legacy.
And that phrase, stolen legacy, that's the core of his thesis. He argues that the Bible is not a Eurocentric document, focused on European people or history, but an Afro-Asiatic one.
A book of the Middle East and Africa.
Exactly. And to explain how this perspective got lost, he uses this really powerful metaphor, a three-legged stool.
I love this analogy. It makes the concept so clear, so visual. Can you break that down for us?
Sure. So, picture a sturdy stool that needs three legs to stand. In Warden's analysis, these legs represent the three sons of Noah, Shem, Japheth, and Ham.
And according to biblical anthropology, these three are the fathers of the entire human race after the flood.
Right. So let's identify who's who on this stool. Shem is identified as the father of the Semitic peoples of Asia.
Okay, Shem is Asia.
Japheth is the father of the Europeans. And Ham is the father of the Black race.
So you have Asia, Europe, and Africa, the three brothers.
Exactly. Now, Warden's argument is that for a long, long time, Western theology basically took a saw to that stool.
They cut a leg off.
Precisely. He argues that Eurocentric Christianity broke off the leg of Ham. They just removed or, minimized the contributions of Black people from the entire narrative.
And if you remove one leg from a three-legged stool...
What happens? It falls over. It can't stand.
It's unstable.
Exactly. The history becomes unstable, illogical. Warden says we have to reattach that leg, the history of Ham and his descendants, for the Bible to make factual historical sense.
You can't tell the story with a third of the cask missing.
You can't. So let's talk about that missing leg. Let's talk about Ham. The book breaks down his family tree, and it is extensive.
And these aren't just names you gloss over. The names are basically a map.
They really are. Ham is the root of the Black race, and he has four sons. First, you have Cush.
Cush, that's Ethiopia, right? And the Sudan region.
Yes. Then you have Mizraim. Mizraim is the ancient Hebrew name for Egypt.
Wait. So Egypt is a child of Ham?
According to this genealogy, yes. Egypt is a Hamitic or Black civilization.
Whoa.
Then you have Phut, which is Libya, North Africa. And finally, the fourth son is Canaan.
Okay, we have to stop here because when you say Ham and Canaan in the same breath, you have to talk about the curse of Ham.
We do.
I mean, how many times has that been used to justify just awful things?
Tragically, for centuries. The curse of Ham was the theological justification for slavery. The whole idea was that Noah cursed Ham, so all Black people, his descendants, were divinely destined to be servants.
But Warden says that is a complete lie. It's not what the text says.
Not at all.
Yeah.
And this is where it gets really interesting when you actually read the text, instead of just accepting cultural assumptions.
Yeah.
As Warden points out, Noah never cursed Ham.
Never.
He cursed Canaan, Ham's youngest son.
Right. So let's revisit that incident. Ham walks in. He sees his father Noah naked and drunk.
And he doesn't cover him. He goes out and tells his brothers it's an act of dishonor.
Not great. But when Noah wakes up...
The curse he speaks is aimed directly at Canaan. Cursed be Canaan. A servant of servants shall he be.
So the target of the curse was one specific grandson, not the whole family.
Exactly. Cush, the Ethiopians, not cursed. Mizraim, the Egyptians, not cursed. Phut, the Libyans, not cursed. Only Canaan's line.
So applying that to all black people was a deliberate distortion.
That's Warden's entire point. It was a twisting of the text to support racism. And it changes everything. It means the vast majority of the African presence in the Bible carries no curse at all.
It clears the board. It restores the dignity of those civilizations.
It does. And speaking of who's who, let's talk about maybe the biggest figure in the Old Testament. Let's talk about Moses.
The Prince of Egypt. Now, we've all seen the movies. We've seen Michelangelo's statue. And Moses is, well, he's white.
He looks like a European patriarch, yes.
But Warden brings up a huge logical problem with that image, a problem of hiding in plain sight.
He was passing, as the book puts it.
Exactly. The book argues that Moses, a Hebrew, was able to pass as the grandson of Pharaoh for 40 years. Now let's use the logic we just established. Pharaoh was king of Egypt,
Which was the land of Mizraim.
a Hamitic, a black civilization.
Right. So Warden poses a simple question. If Moses looked like that white marble statue, how could he possibly hide in a black African royal family?
He'd stand out like a sore thumb. He wouldn't be Pharaoh's grandson. He'd be Pharaoh's strange foreign curiosity.
Precisely. The fact that he could navigate that society as a royal implies he looked like them. The book suggests that generations of Hebrews intermarrying with Egyptians meant he had a dark complexion.
And there's a verse that backs this up, right?
There is. When Moses flees Egypt and meets Jethro's daughters at the well, they run home and tell her father, "An Egyptian delivered us."
They didn't say a Hebrew, they said an Egyptian.
They identified him by his appearance. To them, he looked like a black Egyptian man.
Wow. And speaking of Jethro's daughters, we have to talk about Zipporah, Moses' wife.
Zipporah is a fascinating figure. The Bible, in Numbers chapter 12, explicitly states Moses married an Ethiopian woman.
But the book points out that if you pick up some modern Bibles, you might not see that word.
And that's a critical point about translation bias. Warden argues that many modern Bibles replace Ethiopian with Cushite.
So does that change the meaning?
Well, technically, Cush is the region of Ethiopia. But Warden's point is that Ethiopian is a word everyone today immediately understands as Black Africa. Cushite was a bit more obscure, right? A little more academic.
So he sees it as a way to kind of obscure her identity.
A form of suppression, yes. Using a less familiar term to mask the clear Black identity of this biblical figure. And this was a huge deal in the story. Moses' own family had a problem with her.
A huge problem. Miriam and Aaron spoke against him because of his Ethiopian wife.
It was an interracial marriage dispute. And God's response is so telling. He punishes Miriam with leprosy.
And what did the leprosy look like?
The text says she turned white as snow.
The irony there is just, it's so thick. She criticizes a black woman and God turns her white as a punishment.
Warden highlights that irony. It's a divine defense of the marriage.
So moving on, the book takes us into the genealogy of Jesus himself. And this is where that stolen legacy really gets reclaimed. Warden talks about a scarlet thread.
Yes. The idea that the lineage of the Messiah isn't monochromatic. It's not just one race. It's woven through with Hamitic or Black ancestry, specifically through the women.
Let's list them because these are huge names. First, Rahab.
Rahab, the harlot from Jericho. Jericho was a Canaanite city. Remember, Canaan is a son of Ham, so she's of Hamitic stock.
Then there's Ruth.
Ruth was a Moabitess. Warden identifies her as having Hamitic roots as well.
And Bathsheba,
the wife of Uriah the Hittite. Hittites were Canaanites. So again, you have that Hamitic DNA entering the line of David and eventually Jesus.
Not to mention Tamar. It's everywhere.
And Warden sees this as deliberate. God didn't have to choose these women. He could have chosen a quote-unquote pure line, but he didn't. He chose women from Hamitic backgrounds.
It shows a mixing of the families of the earth.
Absolutely. And speaking of identity, the book touches on the Song of Solomon, the Shulamite bride.
And she says one of the most famous lines in the Bible. I am black, but comely.
Comely, meaning beautiful. I am black and beautiful. Now, Warden points out that many commentaries try to explain this away. He calls it the suntan theory.
The idea that she wasn't actually black, she was just very tan from working outside.
He completely rejects that. He points to the next line where she compares herself to the tents of Kedar.
What were those?
They were Bedouin tents made of black goat hair. They were naturally vividly black. They weren't tanned. That was their color.
So she's asserting her natural black beauty.
She's saying, I am black and I am beautiful, against a world that might have told her otherwise.
I love that. Okay, we have to get to my favorite part. The giants.
Ah, yes. Goliath.
We all know the story, David and Goliath. Big, scary guy. But I never ever thought about his race.
Right. Western art shows him as a giant white man.
Hmm.
But Warden traces the genealogy. Goliath was a Philistine.
And the Bible says the Philistines come from, let me check, Casluhim.
And Casluhim was a son of Mizraim.
Mizraim is Egypt, who is a son of Ham.
There you go. The Philistines are Hamitic.
Yeah.
They're of African descent. Therefore, according to the book, Goliath was a black giant.
It changes the whole picture.
Yeah.
But the book makes a symbolic connection that blew my mind.
The connection to Golgotha.
The place of the skull.
Yes. Warden draws a parallel. David defeats Goliath, the physical giant who defied God. And Jesus is crucified at Golgotha, the place of the skull, defeating the ultimate spiritual head of the serpent.
It ties the Old Testament victory right into the New Testament. So powerful. And speaking of the New Testament, there are black men right there at the crucifixion.
Simon of Cyrene.
The man who carried the cross.
Often just a footnote. But Warden highlights his identity. He was from Cyrene. That's modern-day Libya.
The land of Fit. Another son of Ham.
So here you have a descendant of Ham, a man from Africa, physically helping the Messiah carry his burden when everyone else had fled.
It's an incredible image, but the figure the book really builds up is the Ethiopian eunuch in Acts chapter 8.
This is a pivotal moment. This is the first non-Jewish convert to Christianity.
And the book makes a point to list his credentials. This wasn't some random guy.
Not at all. He was a power player. He was the treasurer for Queen Candace of Ethiopia, the minister of finance, basically.
Okay, we should probably break down the word eunuch for anyone listening.
Of course. A eunuch was a man who had been castrated, often a requirement for serving in a royal court with female rulers. Warden argues we should take that literally, as it shows his incredible dedication.
And Warden emphasizes his resume to counter stereotypes, right?
Exactly. This man was wealthy, he had his own chariot, he was literate, reading an expensive scroll, and he was intelligent, asking deep theological questions.
So why is his story so important?
Because it shows the gospel was open to Africa from day one. There was this huge debate in the early church about whether Gentiles, Europeans, could be saved. But before that was even settled, you have an African man accepting Christ and taking the message home.
So Africa was there at the very beginning.
At the very root. It wasn't a mission field discovered centuries later.
So when you step back and look at the whole picture Warden is painting, what's the big takeaway?
It's about restoration. He's saying the Bible is a multicultural document. By reattaching that Hamitic leg to the stool, we restore the dignity and the presence of people of color in the sacred text. It's not about asserting superiority, but about asserting presence.
Saying, we were there, we were kings, queens, mothers of the Messiah, first converts.
Precisely. It makes the history whole again.
Wow. This has been such an eye-opener. From the three-legged stool, to the truth about the curse, to the lineage of Jesus himself. It really forces you to read these stories with fresh eyes.
And that's the mark of a good book, isn't it? It makes you question your assumptions.
Absolutely. Well, we want to thank you so much for listening to the Mini Book Podcast, African American Books Edition.
And if you found this discussion valuable, please go out and purchase Blacks in the Bible by James H. Warden Jr. Support the author and get the full depth of his research. We've really only scratched the surface.
And please consider subscribing to our podcast so you don't miss what's next. Share it with your friends, your family, anyone who loves history.
And we want to hear from you. Leave a comment and suggest other books you'd like us to feature in this African American Books Edition. We are always looking for more hidden gems.
Thank you for subscribing and listening. Until next time.